So I'm a maladaptive daydreamer. Hi, by the way. What is maladaptive daydreaming? Well, it's defined as extensive fantasy activity that replaces human interaction and/or interferes with academic, interpersonal, or vocational functioning. Considering I'm taking a year out of university, partially because of anxiety, partially because I just haven't done anything, like literally nothing, because I've just been too busy daydreaming or finding material for daydreaming in books and TV series and whatnot. I'd say this is pretty true and pretty accurate to me. But just to make sure, I thought I'd go through 25 signs that you might have maladaptive daydreaming and see just how accurate it all is. So, 1. Your daydreaming switch is always on. For most people, daydreaming is something they can easily turn on or off, but maladaptive daydreamers don't find it easy to pry themselves away from their fantasies. Sometimes their daydreams will interrupt their thoughts even when they need to focus on something else. Yeah, that's very true. I daydream pretty much all the time, in all my free time, and in time which shouldn't be free time. So when I'm traveling on the train or just walking, before lectures, and when I'm at home, largely, when I should be doing work. And if I do try to read a paper, my mind will constantly wander away. It just desperately wants to go away to this fantasy world in my head where everything is so much easier and more interesting. And I just don't have to worry about the real world. 2. You zone out during conversations. Even when they want to listen, people with maladaptive daydreaming don't find it easy to keep up with conversations. They're not the best at being present in the moment simply because they're so used to living in their heads. They don't always realize that they weren't listening until someone asks for a response. They might even have to ask other people to repeat themselves. Yeah, that too. So that can be pretty awkward if I wasn't already awkward enough. I don't really have long enough conversations with most people for this to happen, which, still not a very good thing. But if I'll be talking to my parents, for example, and they're sort of having a long talk about something specific, my mind will just sort of wander off and I won't even realize that I'm doing it. And then I come back and I realize, wait a minute, you just finished talking. What were you saying? What was happening? It starts to feel a bit like I'm losing chunks of time almost. It's very strange. 3. It's a big deal if someone interrupts you when you're daydreaming. Imagine you're watching a really good movie that you've been dying to see. As the tension and drama unfold, you become fully absorbed into the story. But just as the climax nears, a friend barges into the room and wants to start a conversation. Naturally, you won't be too happy. But that's exactly what it feels like when a maladaptive daydreamer is interrupted doing their daydream time. Yeah, you can get pretty irritated about it, especially if it makes you lose your train of thought and then you have to try and come back to it after they're gone, try and remember it, and all through their talking, you're constantly trying to keep it alive in your head to remember what was going on and where you were up to. Yeah, I actually think I genuinely had this, even earlier than before I realized, where I had a good friend in high school in the last couple of years of high school, who I was actually starting to get really irritated with because he was constantly interrupting my daydreams, and I didn't realize why I was feeling annoyed by my friend. And it was actually kind of upsetting because I didn't know why I didn't want to be around him, why I wanted to sort of go eat somewhere else or just be on my own in my daydreams. 4. You want to find out how to control your daydreaming. While it's fun to make up storylines in your mind, maladaptive daydreaming can be so addictive that it affects other areas of your life. And then it's suddenly not as fun anymore. It's hard to completely enjoy daydreaming when you know it's stopping you from living your life. That's why many maladaptive daydreamers look for a way to make their fantasizing more manageable. So on the one hand, I do not want to get rid of my daydreaming entirely because I feel like it is genuinely a part of me. I feel like getting rid of that would be taking away a big chunk of who I am, a big part of my sort of internal life. But on the other hand, I do need to learn to control it, because I am constantly running away to that world and leaving the real world. And the thing is, the real world doesn't exactly wait for you. So time will still pass and you won't realize it, and then suddenly, hey, it's exam time and you haven't done anything. And you have no idea how that happened. Like, literally, I feel like Christmas was yesterday right now. I can't believe that it is already March. What? When did this happen? How did this happen? It's very... Anyway. 5. You never struggle to entertain yourself when you're bored. When you're a compulsive daydreamer, you don't have to look for entertainment, you just create it. You have enough content from your fantasies to keep you busy for hours at a time. Many times you might even be happy that you don't have anything to do because it leaves you more time to daydream. Yeah, very true. Like, a long car ride where I don't have to talk to anyone is perfect. And I actually enjoy traveling on the train, even if I've forgotten to bring a book or a podcast, something, because it gives me more time to just be in my daydreaming world, to create more stories. And I think it actually sort of partially originally started as just a way to entertain myself when I was feeling bored, and then just sort of grew completely out of proportion. 6. You sometimes catch yourself acting out the daydream. Many people with MD need some type of physical movement to immerse themselves in a daydream. While some might simply pace or rock back and forth, others may get even more creative. There are plenty of stories of people acting out a dream scenario, whether through singing, dancing, or just talking out loud. Yeah, I do that quite a lot when I'm on my own. So before bed, if anyone were actually there to see me, which obviously I wouldn't actually do it if anyone were there, I will make all the facial expressions. I will talk out loud for at least one half of the conversation, if not all the people in the conversation. I usually don't pace or anything, and I don't necessarily need to do it. I can still daydream when I'm out in public and have impassive face, but it's more fun, I guess, and more immersive when I can do it. 7. You've had to explain why you randomly make funny faces. When maladaptive daydreamers start fantasizing, they really get involved. Without even realizing it, they start laughing at a comment one of the characters made, or begin crying when another character's relationship goes sour. Unfortunately, this seems to happen at the most inconvenient moments, namely when someone is walking past them. I don't think I've had that so much, because I just have a good impassive face and good at hiding that and not accidentally starting to actually say the things or make the faces when I'm in public. But that's more of just a really strong verbal / facial filter, which causes other problems in actual conversations. 8. The question, what are you thinking about, takes forever to answer. If you spend any significant amount of time daydreaming, people will notice. It's only a matter of time before someone asked the dreaded question no maladaptive daydreamer wants to hear. Even if answering didn't require sharing personal details, there's no way to sum up a soap opera length storyline into just a few words. It is so difficult to explain. I've only tried actually explaining it to a person once, like fully explaining it, which was when I was a little bit younger and I was talking to my mum, and I think I could just see her eyes glazing over because she had no idea what I was talking about. Like, what's going on? It's too much to explain. So when I first went to the psychologist, when I told her about maladaptive daydreaming, she wanted to know what I daydream about. I had no clue where to start. I mean, my main character, Lucinda, has sort of it's difficult to explain, but in a way she's had 2 lives. And in order to explain that, I have to explain a lot of world building aspects, which is also part of why I haven't really managed to write down much, because I have no idea where to start or how to explain. It's just, there's too much to explain, no idea where to start. 9. In a group setting, you don't mind when people ignore you. While most people find it uncomfortable to be the wallflower, maladaptive daydreamers could care less. It's much harder for them to daydream when other people demand their attention. This is why they usually seek solitude. That way, There's no pressure to put on a social performance. They can stare off into space without worrying about what anyone will think. I feel like there's two sides on this. On the one hand, if I can just be away in my daydreams, it's so much easier. But on the other hand, this is sort of like an avoidance behavior which has prevented me from making friends, from going out and being in these group settings in the first place. And I would like to be there and I'd like to be talking with people. But I guess that's where the maladaptive part comes in. You just can't bring yourself to do it. It's easier just to avoid it and go to your friends in your imaginary world instead. 10. It takes a full hour to watch a 10-minute video. Even when you're watching something interesting, you just can't help yourself and pause the video every 50 seconds to slip off into a daydream. It's not always a big deal, since you do go back to the video eventually. Well, it depends on the video, partially, because I find I actually watch quite a lot TV shows and movies, which sort of gives me material from my daydreams, more stories to think about and work with. But on the other hand, sometimes if it's something really interesting, I will actually want to pause it a lot because I think, oh, here's a good idea. I'll pause it here and think about this idea and develop a story, and then I can come back to it later. And then I'll go for another minute or so and think, oh wait, that's also a good idea. I'm going to work on this. So that can take a while too. 11. You have issues keeping track of time. Yeah, I was talking about that earlier. Legend has it that maladaptive daydreaming has impressive time-bending properties. It's not like stepping into the fairy realm. You spend an hour there and when you come back to the ordinary world, 100 years have passed. Alright, not quite that dramatic, but it always ends up feeling like the clock is lying to you. You know you are only daydreaming for 10 minutes, so why is it saying that an hour has passed? Some days it just smells of conspiracy. Yeah, I find that a lot, and even if I'm doing just a routine action, like getting some water or making some tea or brushing my teeth or something like that, after I'll be daydreaming doing it, and then afterwards I'll think, wait, did I do this thing? And I'll just say mysteriously find a bottle of water that's been filled. This literally happened this morning. The water bottle had been filled and I didn't remember filling it. It was it's very surreal thing to have happen. Another time, I got up in the morning, I did all the things I was supposed to do, that, like, to prepare for the day, and I was ready for the day, and then I lie down on the bed, and I go into my daydreams for a little bit, and next thing I know, it's been 4 hours. I have been lying still on my bed for 4 hours. What the heck? 12. Procrastination is your favourite word. If you always do things ahead of time or always closely follow your schedule, daydreaming probably isn't an issue for you. Maladaptive daydreamers, on the other hand, love to drag their feet when it comes to getting anything done. They'll tell themselves just 10 more minutes, but then the time warp I mentioned earlier hits them. Yeah, procrastination was my favourite word before I even knew what the hell maladaptive daydreaming is. Because even before, actually, I think that's actually maladaptive daydreaming. I've always been the sort of person who tends to do things more last minute. And you know, that seemed to work. I could get by on that. Can't get by now, especially when I've got projects that you're supposed to go do over an entire year. And I have done nothing. Not nothing, but almost nothing. Yeah. 13. When reading, you always lose your place. With MD, there's always distraction pulling you away from the story, so reading in peace is a challenge. You might even have to reread the same line multiple times. I find this is the case when it's things which aren't a story, like a research paper. When I'm actually reading a book which is actually like a story, sci-fi, fantasy, that sort of thing, I'll usually be pulled into it enough that it's almost as if it were in a daydream, with all things happening around you, so I don't tend to have that problem unless I haven't managed to get properly into the book. 14. You consider your daydreaming to be the highlight of your day. When you have maladaptive daydreaming, you live every moment in anticipation of your next daydreaming session. Since the real world seems rather boring, you practically celebrate any time you can be alone to daydream. Unfortunately, this also means you have to say goodbye to having any outside interests. Yeah, that's true. When I'm not daydreaming, I'm thinking of what I can daydream next, what new stories I can think about. Yeah, just almost constantly thinking about daydreaming or thinking about reading or watching something to give me more material for daydreaming. 15. Your daydreaming comes with safety risks. Believe it or not, maladaptive daydreaming can be a bit dangerous. At home, there's a chance you might burn down the house because you forgot to put something in the oven. Outside, you might step out into a busy road or end up in a car accident. Yeah, so I do daydream a lot when I'm just doing boring things or when I'm just walking. Luckily, so far I've managed to continue to have enough attention on the roads not to get into any accidents, but I have occasionally had a bit of a slip up where I haven't paid enough attention. Luckily, haven't had any close calls yet. Um, and yeah, like I said, at home, sometimes I forget whether or not I've done a trivial task or not, so that could extend to burning down the house. 16. Meditation is torture for you. Despite how useful meditation can be, most people with MD can't help but want to shy away from it. They know it will require them to focus their attention, which seems just about impossible with the amount of thoughts racing around in their heads. So there's sort of two aspects to this. I guess I used to think of meditation more as like time to close your eyes and just think about things in general, not stories, but things in general. And I do enjoy that. I have enjoyed that. But recently I did try a mindfulness meditation exercise, and it's 20 minutes long, and I probably stopped around 16 because it was so goddamn boring. It's literally just every minute or so they say, and remember to breathe. Can't I do some sort of visualization exercise or something? That would be so much more fun, but I guess that's not the idea of it. 17. Speaking of visualization, visualization is a piece of cake. If there's one thing people with MD are good at, it's visualization. They know how to hold an image in their mind and make it come to life. Ask them to picture a room in an imaginary house, and they'll not only see it, but they'll experience it as if they were there. They might hear rain pattering against the window, or smell something baking in the kitchen. For maladaptive daydreamers, what begins as an image can become reality. Yeah, I love visualizing things. Like in Within the Wires, which is the podcast, they always have. Well, I've only listened to relaxation cassettes. I don't know about the next bits, but the parts I've listened to, they always have a visualization exercise, and I love them. And I love reading things like, oh, imagine these sounds, like imagine high heels on marble floor, or like I said, hear rain pattering against the window, smell something baking in the kitchen. It's just so enjoyable. It's like makes you feel content. That sort of nice sound or nice smell. So I do very much enjoy visualization, as well as finding it right quite easy. 18. You frequently experience deja vu. Living with ND can feel like every day is Groundhog Day. When you're talking to someone, you feel like you've already had the same conversation before. Places and activities feel familiar, even if they're completely new. At their most vivid, daydreams can simulate reality and make people feel as if they've done something when they know they haven't. Yeah, I don't know if it's because I daydream about having done the thing, or just a vague sense of deja vu from I have no idea what, but I have found that as I daydream more and more, I have gotten deja vu more and more, and it's such a strange feeling, especially when you don't know where it's coming from. 19. A great movie scene makes you think, that's going in my next daydream. Yeah, that's what I was saying before. I wouldn't doubt that for maladaptive daydreamers, the true motivation behind watching or reading anything is to find new inspiration for their daydreams. The right scene or character might keep a new fantasy going for months. Yeah. In fact, reading and watching things is what originally started me on daydreaming. So I thought, oh, these stories are great, I want to do something more with them. And I created this character so that she would be able to fit into all these different universes. And then it just sort of progressively got worse. And yeah, so people will think, oh my god, you read so much. It's like, well, yeah, but maybe too much, and it's for something else which I do too much. They say as if it were an amazing thing, but it's just a simple thing for me, I guess. It was the feeding my addiction something. Don't really like calling it an addiction, it makes it sound. Anyway. 20. You can't hold your concentration for long periods of time. Remember what I said about how intrusive daydreams can be with ND? I wasn't joking. Maladaptive daydreaming can make completing even the simplest tasks difficult. Concentrating on anything that's not daydreaming for longer than a minute feels like holding your breath underwater. Yep. Every time I try to read a research paper, which is my example apparently for everything, I cannot do it. It generally does feel like you are trying to hold your breath underwater in a way. It's just, yeah, it's so difficult to concentrate on that. And an additional thing that's made it difficult, I've had other things which have caused difficulties concentrating. So then it's like, am I having difficulty concentrating because of other problems or because of maladaptive daydreaming? It all gets very confusing when you add that all in. 21. You never remember where you put things. People with MD aren't the best at staying conscious of the present moment. They can be oblivious to what's going on in their environment, or even their own actions. One moment they can put something down, and the next they're looking for it since they weren't really there when it happened. I haven't really noticed this as much, but I think it probably does happen. It definitely sounds like something I would do. 22. You choose your music based on your current daydream scenario. Although people with MD can have normal music preferences like anyone else, more often than not, their fantasies influence the music that they listen to. Sometimes they need the right song to set the tone for a dream scene, or even to trigger the daydream in the first place. Now, I don't need it to trigger daydreams, but I do like having music in the background when I can, and I'll often do this at night before going to sleep. And so that's also why I like to watch a lot of the YouTube music videos, which for like specific shows like Supernatural and whatnot, because they are often ones that are more story based and that really fit well with like dramatic stories and things. 23. You do real life research to make your daydreams more accurate. Maladaptive daydreamers want their fantasies to look and feel as real as possible. Sometimes they accomplish this by doing actual research in the real world. You might look at houses, different styles of clothing, the history of a certain time period, or particular details of a location. Despite the amount of work that goes into it, the process can actually be quite fun. I don't feel like I do this as much, but I definitely do incorporate things that I've learned from like just random facts that I've seen. And I do occasionally do a little bit of research. For example, when trying to come up with a name for the character, I looked up a couple of different names and meanings and things to sort of figure out what would fit. Yeah. 24. You're hooked on name books and online name generators. What's the story about names? Those characters and towns that you spend hours creating don't name themselves, you know. Well, yeah, like I said before, trying to come up with a name. I don't really do this as often though. Often I'll use characters or places which are already from stories that I've watched or read about, which I guess is a little bit less creative, but it's what I find to be fun. 25. Your daydreams have a special place in your heart. Despite the issues, our daydreams matter to us. They've been with us through the ups and downs of life and have helped us understand who we are. We wouldn't be quite the same without them. Yeah, like have I said that? I don't remember if I said this or not. But yeah, I could not bring myself to get rid of these daydreams because I feel like I was taking away a part of myself. They're part of me. I want to get them back to the adaptive part so I can actually get stuff done. But I don't want to get rid of them. And so yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to say, and that is super long and probably super boring. But hey, if you want to check out that website, it's called The Dreaming Place. I guess I should probably put a link in the description. And that's all then. Bye.